Welcome, everyone, to the completely unnecessary podcast for Tuesday, November 10th. It's cold out there, 2020. That's Mitchell's shirt-wearing Ian Ferguson. Mitchell's. I'm Pat Country. On the show today, we have lots of sordid tales of retro and modern gaming goodness for you. Ooh, it's gossipy. No, it's not. What we're talking about...
I was going to say, this looks fairly cut and dry.
Sega selling Arcade Biz, talking about a PS5 article from Kotaku, the Warrior 64 console Kickstarter, the GameStop TikTok challenge, and a little bit more. Ian, how was your weekend?
Busy. I worked.
Worked?
We had like 2 weeks that were kind of slower, which is usually common in the fall, especially in October. But they were busier than most falls. And then I don't know, this weekend it ramped right back up. I think it's probably too early for people to be doing Christmas shopping, but who knows? I mean, right now video games are just riding an incredibly high wave of popularity because there's nothing else to do. And that's what I've been doing at home. I've been playing my PC Engine stuff. I got to stream for a little bit last night. I haven't streamed. Well, I streamed music like 2 weeks ago, and then last night I streamed a little bit of Devil's Crush and a little bit of Rondo of Blood for Vulture Video, which is a small independent video rental store that my buddy Rick volunteers at. So they were doing some fundraising for that, and it seemed like it went pretty well. Eric Lappy was there. Rick was there. Matt Wissig was there, the guy who has the Contra world record. So yeah, it was a good time. That's pretty much what I did. Oh, and I've been reading a lot of Pokemon manga.
Oh, yeah, I saw you tweet a couple of funny pictures.
It's been it's like mashed potatoes for the brain. It's been very easy to read, very comforting.
Not too complex.
Not too complex. A bit more dramatic than the TV show, I would say, which is kind of interesting. It looks like they were written kind of side by side, so there's big differences. But yeah, no, it's been fun. So yeah, that's what I did. Vonnie's been catching up on her reading too.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I got to read more again. I stopped reading. Probably once I got smartphones. I used to read like 3-4 books a year, and I got to get a big heavy book off the shelf and actually read it.
Smartphones will definitely screw that up.
No, it's smartphomes have made us idiots as people.
There's a lot of good things to them as well. I mean, no, but I've always had a problem with attention, and my phone has made that 100% worse.
Yeah, it's warped people's minds. I mean, if you try to communicate with someone that's 20 years younger, or it's like you're almost talking to an alien sometimes if they're constantly on their phone or on Instagram. Now, it sounds like an old man, but it's true. And there's another conversation, but they're starting to figure out how engagement with your phone is changing like your neural network in your brain in terms of constant attention and going back and forth with things. And it's scary. We missed that. We're the last generation to deal. We got out scot-free with that. We didn't get cell phones till we were like late teens, early 20s, so we were okay. But you grew up with them.
I didn't get my first cell phone until I think 2002, and I didn't get my first...
2004 for me.
I didn't get my first smartphone. I was fairly early on that. I think my first smartphone was an iPhone 3.
I didn't get mine till like the 4, I think. So I was like 2013, 14.
Yeah, my first one was the one right before they did like the nicer display.
But I harken back to a simpler time, the 80s. And you know what, Ian? Wednesday night, I'll be on Twitch, twitch.tv/CountryCode. Every Wednesday or usually Thursday night, we do 80s commercial blocks from 80s Commercial Vault on YouTube. It's a fun time. You ever stop in and watch some with Pat?
No, Wednesdays I'm almost always working. That's why.
Okay. Sometimes Thursday, but it's a nice cultural... history lesson. I'm usually one of the oldest people in there, so I explain to people like the toy stuff that comes up, or it's nice. It's I found my niche on Twitch. I don't like playing games on Twitch because it's not relaxing and you can't interact with people as easily. But watching commercials and riffing on it. The local commercials are a blast. When you see some of the local commercials, like a local gun store commercial, he's like, where the guy's like, they're cheap because I can't give them away, but I want to, and it's like the funniest shit ever. It's like, this is great.
Playing games on Twitch is absolutely not relaxing at all.
I mean, I tried it, but it's like if it's a hard game, then you definitely can't concentrate on like the chat and the game. It's impossible. With Unreal, it was like a chore to play that game and then try to even pretend the chat existed. You just can't do it. You just can't. But yeah, twitch.tv/country code there. So the election results we got on Saturday, or at least they called it finally on like Saturday morning after like 4 grueling days of little sleep. I'm just happy that I'm like more relaxed now in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, we have to go through the process of, you know, the actual electors and the college and confirming in Congress to count, but it's gonna be all right. I know there's some kerfuffle going on right now, but it's mostly blowhard stuff. But I bet the market though. That was also why. So there's a legal. Remember, gamble responsibly before you get into this. There's a legal gambling market called Predict It. There's also, I think, a secondary one, and they have a federal exemption where you can bet on world events and politics, and I bet on different states in the election. And how it's legal, Ian, is that universities throughout the U.S. are connected to the system so they can see how people are thinking, and they use that for research. So that's how it's legal. That's how they got around this loophole. But
it's small money too, isn't it?
Well, you can bet up to $850 per betting pool, so it's not exactly small, but like, you know, you can spread $850 out for 20 different ways, and that's $16,000. But so it's that, but they limit the size of the number of bettors in each pool as well, which I think is 5,000. So only 5,000 people can bet on straight up who's going to win the election. But then 5,000 people can bet on who's going to win this state, who's going to win Minnesota. So I found a few markets. I got it, and I got great odds on Georgia. So I always thought Georgia was going to be either 50-50, or I felt good about Georgia for the Democrats. So I got like 3 or 4 to 1 odds. 4 to 1 odds close to it. So this is what I'm going to say to people. If you're disappointed about the election, I understand that. But if you think things are going to change, I implore you to challenge me on Predict It. Put your money where your mouth is. Go gamble against Pat directly on these markets. Go do it. If you hate me, if you think I'm a leftist, take that credit card out, and I'll be glad to bet against you. Prove Pat wrong here. I'm just trying to, get better odds here. Some of these markets haven't closed yet. Prove Pat wrong. Put the money out there and bet against me. Because you're literally doing that on these markets. So you can do that. I'm trying to rile you up and maybe get a couple of your bucks at the same time. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. So other than that, this weekend, I saw Frank, and we just did a late birthday celebration. We watched the game of the week, and then we just ordered pizza.
Ate the foods.
We got a Uliva pizza, which is actually pretty good for San Diego pizza.
God, pizza sounds so good.
I hadn't had pizza in a few months, because every time I have pizza, I'm grossly disappointed in San Diego whenever I have pizza. I'm like, oh, I want pizza. This is not great pizza. Like, you can get to okay pizza, but you're not going to get to those Long Island heights that we experienced last year. That's for damn sure. But speaking of that, we might get a vaccine. So.
Yeah, 90% effectiveness.
Over, I think was it 100 people? Was it over 30,000 people they gave it to?
Yeah, I believe so. I can't get too excited or hopeful about much of anything these days. So we'll wait until that needle's in my vein. But yeah, I mean, that's promising.
Well, the rollout's going to be complicated, obviously. What do you have to have the military come down to everyone's street and give it to people? I mean, how are you going to do that with 350 million people?
Just aerosol everything.
You get those Amazon drones, deliver them. You do it yourself.
Terrifying.
Ian, you want to talk about Sega selling off their arcade biz here?
Yeah, kind of sad. Sega sold off their arcade business. They were seeing a downturn in profits. A few months ago, they sold off one of their biggest arcades, the Building 2. I can't remember exactly where that was, but it was all over the news. It's got a real unique building shape. Go away. Stop telling me things. Thank you.
Sorry, Ian.
So they said that it was strongly affected by COVID-19. That's why they sold it off. They sold the shares to Genda. It's the soft G, I believe, a company that has a strong desire to expand amusement center operation businesses and has decided to conclude the share transfer agreement of a board directors meeting held today. So that's who they sold off the arcade business to. It's not the end of the line for Sega, though. They are still going to be making in arcades. They're still going to be making arcade games, but they are going to be transferring some of their arcade division over to console development, they said, which is good. Sega's got a lot of properties under it now, and there's lots of fans that would love to see their older properties come to light again. It worked very, very well with Streets of Rage. So yeah, that's where it's happening. Businesses all over are feeling the effects of the pandemic.
From what I read from this little article here, there was an interview with the PR staff of Sega Sammy Holdings. Did they buy out Sammy at some point? I guess they did.
No, Sammy bought them out at some point.
Sammy bought Sega?
That was a while ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Sammy bought Sega.
They're gonna keep. They're going to keep like the Sega arcade names up there and on the whatever. I know they have Sega restaurants, but it sounds like it's going to be, well, we're keeping like 15% of it, but they're not going to be controlling it anymore. So because if you like Sega arcades and that's the brand, I don't know why you change the brand on this stuff. So that makes sense. So it's not like these are disappearing entirely. They're just not going to be in control of it anymore. This question it is assumed that Sega's arcade game production team will still exist, but will this sale have any effect on the arcade development? It's as you recognize, our group will still continue doing the amusement device development business. Moreover, our group is also planning to optimize development resources to fit the market environment of each enterprise. That is corporate speak. For example, by shifting some of the amusement device development staff to the consumer business, which is a growing field. Consumer business, okay. I don't know what consumer business they'd have for Sega stuff, but okay. Anyway, Sega's consumer business segment is comprised, of the console and PC games team and the smartphone game teams. Oh God, smartphone stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, they're still going to be doing stuff, obviously, but to me, it sounds like they don't want to have to manage any of the physical shit anymore, locations and retail stuff, and they want out of that. It looks like a lot of it. So, all right.
Going back to, because I had to look myself, the Sega Sammy merger happened in 2004.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, all right. So it's like you're still going to have some of these buildings around. Once we got everything under control, people will hopefully flock to arcades and to retail business space again.
It sounds more like a handing over of the keys as much as shutting down anything.
Sure. We'll see. Real quick, Ian. We're now closing in on the holiday season.
We are.
And Thanksgiving. You can give thanks at ultimatenintendo.com. We got RBI baseball stickers. That can be stocking stuffers. We got CU podcast enamel pins that you can fit 14 of those in a stocking at least. And certain NES and Super Nintendo guidebooks.
You could kill someone with that stocking.
Yeah, you can. It'd be like,
these are heavy.
Full Metal Jacket. And you put the soap inside a sock.
Say the old sock full of quarters.
Yeah, there you go.
From
you can do that, or the NES and Super Nintendo guidebooks. Make a great gift right there. My display, Ian. My display. And also, I'm on Cameo, cameo.com/PatCountry. I haven't plugged that in a bit there for all your shout out needs, birthdays, holidays. If you want me to give thanks to you, I can do that. Cameo.com/PatCountry. Sad news, Ian, with Alex Rebecc passing away, age 80.
Yeah, that was a bummer. That one hit home. Like many people, I grew up watching Jeopardy. It was on every day at 7:30. Yeah.
Wheel of Fortune 7. It was a power hour.
And I'd always watch it with my mom. I think Alex Trebek was one of the more comforting television presences and personalities that was out there. He made knowledge cool. And from all accounts, he absolutely adored and loved his job. There were stories going around. I think Ken Jennings posted one about how it was prior to his diagnosis, but Alex Trebek was having a really bad day, like before going on doing a tournament. And he could tell he was having a rough one. He was in pain. Something was going on. And as soon as he heard his name go off, he went out and did his job. And, Ken Jennings asked him about it. And he was like, it's so rare these days to see someone who truly loves what they do for a living. Where it is their element. It's not something that they just enjoy. It becomes them. And he very much, I guess, felt his best when he was, in front of the contestants and cheering them on and stuff like that. So yeah, it was sad. He has new episodes coming out up until the end of the year. His final episode will actually air on Christmas Day, which is kind of a nice little coincidence.
It's Christmas Day? Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That'll be sad, right? If you know it's coming. It's like, oh, God, we have one more left. And obviously they'll probably do a memorial thing on that show for him afterwards or something. He didn't get to do his sign-off like some of the other hosts have done, fortunately. Wow, they filmed that far in advance, huh? Like 6, 7 weeks,
he was
8 weeks?
Filming up until October 29th, so he filmed as recently as 2 weeks ago.
Wow. And, wow, up till the end, that's an entertainer. That's wow. Yeah, I watched it. Obviously, when you're like 8, 9 years old, you get more out of Wheel of Fortune when you're a kid than that, for the most part. But I enjoyed it. The NES games probably helped a lot. Playing the NES game that I borrowed from my grandparents' neighbor had it, so I always would play Jeopardy. And plus, I had it on the PC. Wheel of Fortune, we had Jeopardy on the PC. So at that point, it's funny. Think about it. He wasn't on the show that long. We were playing just a few years then.
Yeah, I always kind of, because I remember him my whole life. I honestly didn't know that I thought he started at some point in the 70s. He started in 1984.
Yeah,
that's when he started. That's still an incredibly long run.
36 years.
That's insane. But yeah, I honestly didn't know when he started. I thought that block went back further, and no, that was like a big primetime push for those game shows.
See, I enjoyed him on Classic Concentration when he did it with the daytime, especially in the summer. You'd watch the daytime, we'll just say lighter game shows, and he was on in the morning, whenever it was, like 10:30 or whatever, or 11, or he was on there. That was his secondary. That's the easy job, doing Classic Concentration. You show up, you do Classic Concentration, then you do Jeopardy. It's a lot of hosts did that. They had like a couple of different game shows like that, and I used to love Classic Concentration as well. Back in the day. No, nice guy. And like you said, celebrating. We don't celebrate enough intelligence and education and knowledge in U.S. culture. We don't. It's sad that we don't. And then that's why we're, for first world countries, we're not even in the top 10 usually of a lot of these, for math and for science and for...
Especially in the past few years, it feels like there's been a real pandering to idiocy. And...
what did I coin the phrase? It's arrogant ignorance, but it's also thinking that it's the inability to decipher what is true information or what is horse shit. Like, that's part of the educational process is being able to filter. Do research and figure out from different sources what are facts, and that's obliterated. That's been obliterated. It's just, I saw a YouTube video, it must be true. Like, that's where we are now.
Right.
It's like, what? Do you know that person who made that YouTube video probably wasn't educated that well and just cobbled together some thoughts? You're going to trust that person over someone that studied something for 25 years? And
they said what I like to hear. So
yeah, it's confirming your biases and worldview versus, people that study things their entire lives and might know a little bit better. But that's okay. But anyway, Alex Trebek sounds like a great guy. No one had anything bad to say about the guy. Here's to you, Alex Trebek. And he died like a week after Sean Connery did, which was funny because we brought him on the podcast a few weeks ago out of nowhere. Sean Connery, and he died like a week later after that.
We killed him.
Can't kill James Bond. It's impossible. Real quick, Ian, before the show started, in our little not even call it prep. We don't even do prep. Some podcasts do prep. We just say, let's start. But we discovered that Arcade1Up, through a Twitter post, they have HDMI little consoles, like how Retrobit did their Generations console. I had no idea they were coming out with these. So there's a couple of them. There's a Mega Man one, which has Mega Man 1 through 6, and it has a 6-button controller with little Mega Man on it.
It's an awful controller.
Controller's terrible.
It's gross. It's actually repulsive to look at. It's a disgusting controller.
It's like the second Sega Saturn controller, kind of.
No.
Kind of. The shape, because there's even space for 2 triggers at the top. There's space for 2 triggers, but I don't see if there's triggers on it. I'm trying to find an angle where they got rid of the triggers. So there's that, and then there's also a Namco one with 10 games for $40. And there's a standard. You get your HDMI out. There's a USB in. I think you can put your own ROMs on because there's emulators in there and play them. And I had no idea Arcade1Up was going to get into this market. I guess they figured, hey, why not? Everyone else has. We'll do it. And it's Christmas. We can sell them. Are we getting to the point where we're just done with these sort of things anymore? Or these little all-in-one?
I feel like they must be selling at some level for people to keep pumping them out. And I mean, the Mega Man games are popular. 1 through 6 is that's a nice little bundle. But you can get that. You can get that Mega Man collection on just about any system for about half that price, and you can play it with a controller that doesn't look like absolute trash.
Yeah, I think that's what is that D-pad looks horrible.
It looks creaky. That whole controller looks creaky. Like, I feel like you pick that up and you hold it in your hand and you can feel that plastic twist in your hands. It's just that cheap.
Why in 2020
shitty plastic
are there still D-pads with the circular base underneath? The patent ran out on the Nintendo's D-pad a while ago. You can do a Nintendo D-pad on these, or at least you don't need that circular Genesis style. Like, why would you think that's better to still have that? Why?
I don't know.
Especially for NES platformers, it will never be as precise as that.
And thanks for the 6 buttons on that.
Six buttons for Mega Man 1 through 6.
Yep.
Well, I guess you can use Turbo on a couple or whatever. But the fact that this is also an emulation device, there you go. You can put on Genesis games and Super Nintendo. So for that, but the Namco one, it looked like it was using, at the very least. I saw a review. Galaga 88 was on there, and it looked like the PC Engine ROM. And the Dig Dug one was the arcade, so they're not the NES ones at least. As we know, I hate when these use the NES arcade ROMs. I want to throw something at that point. It's horrifying.
Is it just ease of use? I mean, that's all I can think of.
Well, the emulator, I guess, is cheap on the chip, whatever.
Right.
It's been around for 20 years on these handhelds. Maybe, I don't know. It costs you a little more money maybe to get the ROMs for the arcade. I don't know. I mean, the emulators themselves, I mean, what's on these things? Like, it's MAME. They just took MAME and threw it on it. I don't know. But yeah, it's just interesting to see that, because I didn't think that you'd still have these coming out at a pace of multiple ones a year. But like, it's Christmas stocking stuff for $40. It's not horrible. It's not horrifying, right?
Mm.
Right. All right. Were we on SNL on Saturday? Did you see that?
I watched it. I don't like SNL very much, but
we did a Mario 35 little edutainment type sketch, and everyone was texting me, "Oh my God, they're doing a parody of video game years." And I watched it. I was like, "Yeah, I could see that." It was more like a overview, but so basically they interview some people talking about, "Oh, Mario's 35 years. What are your memories?" And there's like it's a green screen thing, and people are talking about Mario. Then there's 2 people on the screen that may or may not be me and Ian, a parody of talking about, hey, it's our memories of Super Mario Brothers, and then it quickly and hysterically sort of transitions into a story about some guy's balls popping, which is funny, and it keeps going back to that. So everyone sent that to me on Saturday night, and it was fun. It was a funny skit.
I remember taking my bike over to my grandma's house once and riding it up and down the street real fast, and I slipped right off the seat and did kind of the same thing they talk about in the video. Crushed my nuts and then flipped right over the front of the handlebars. Happened so fast I didn't know what happened.
Was it a 10 speed?
It was
BMX bike?
It was some sort of shitty bike.
Some huffy, like some BMX wannabe bike?
Right, exactly. It was some
Everyone
sort of
had the huffy wannabe bikes.
BMX wannabe. I'm pretty sure it was a huffy. Yeah.
The $90 Kmart specials that weren't as good as the ones from a bike store, but they got the job done.
It had 2 wheels and you could pedal it.
Mine was blue. Mine was like blue finish, blue wheels, blue and like chrome was mine. It got the job done. I rode it for like 7-8 years. I rode it until I got mountain bike when I was like 15.
Yeah, they last. I mean,
that was fine. The mountain bike I had problems because we actually went off road with that, and then that was right before shocks and suspension became standard. They were expensive still, so I broke my rims like 3-4 times on my mountain bike because I'd have shocks on it. They were
just cracked when you would go off something.
They would crack. They'd bend,
yeah,
and then like they rub up against that part of the rim would rub up against the brakes, the brake pads when it went around. So you had to have someone hammer out or buy new ones. It happened like 2 or 3 times. Of course, my rich cousin Chris had his Diamondback with he had the shocks, of course, because he had to get everything that was brand new. He had like the $700 mountain bike. Mine was only like $300. Shut up, Chris. I'm not jealous that you got all those Valiant comics that were worth a ton of money in the 90s. Well, they're now worthless.
Oh yeah, probably worth.
I got ride number 3 and 4. They only made 20,000 of them. Great, good for you, Chris. You're not actually reading them. Sorry, what was I saying? Super Mario Brothers 35 sketch. Someone actually left a comment. We'll get to it eventually on the listener voicemails about what would it take to get video game years the 90s back. So that's what
that comes up like every year.
Well, I mean, this is a voice message about it. It's like, hey, maybe there's someone in the rich out there that'll sponsor it. But anyway, so yeah, that was it in this hectic. We'll just say hectic week last week. Just to go back to I didn't sleep well for like 3 days straight last week.
Neither did I.
It was a very nervous time between like Tuesday, and Friday. It was like I hadn't watched CNN in like years, and all of a sudden I'm watching the masterful John King work that board for days on end. The GOAT, John King.
I didn't turn on any TV coverage, but I was checking the news sites a bit more frequently than I would have liked to.
John King's like the Alex Rebecc of working the board. He's very calm. He's not pretentious. He gives you the facts straight. He doesn't talk down to you, but he keeps things smooth and casual. But love John King. Everyone was going nuts for John King doing this stuff. There was a meme about like him having nub fingers by the time it was over from working the board so much.
Sure.
The magic board, He zooms in on counties and outs, and he knows all the counties in the U.S. somehow. That was the fun thing about people watching the election. It sounds like worldwide, even people are watching the cover. People internationally, wow, I'm learning so much about all these different counties and random states in the U.S. And it's like, hey, but in all seriousness, I did almost not cheer up and get misty-eyed. But to see people throughout the U.S. not just coming out and voting in record numbers. Obviously, that's fantastic, and that should happen every time. Not take democracy for granted like we usually do. But all the poll workers, all the volunteers, all the people counting the ballots, all the people that are poll watchers. That's amazing that people do that, and that's how you have a functioning democracy, is having the people in place. I think it's important enough to go out and do those things. Without that, it's tough. And that's everywhere from Alaska to California to Michigan to Pennsylvania to Georgia, everywhere. People have to do that.
Oh, yeah. I think everyone that I encountered when I went and voted on Tuesday. I mean, to be out there doing that, especially right now during COVID, is pretty big. And they had a really good system down, and it was fast and efficient, and yeah, I mean, kudos to them. Absolutely.
Yeah, the expression is democracy is messy. Well, it has to be, because it's all in our hands versus some sort of authoritarian system where the outcome is known beforehand because you have no say in it. Like, so it's messy for a reason. This is what happens. It gets worked out. The U.S. is 50 different states, widely different geographically, the U.S., and in terms of demographics. And so this is how it happens. And every state does their own thing. They have all their different own rules for when they count the votes, when they start accepting things, when they stop accepting them. So, like I said, it's messy, but we get there. So, but no, I got misty-eyed. I was like, oh, look at these poll people in this state, in this state, and in this state, and they're just slaving away, counting ballots at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m.
Doing their thing.
They're doing their thing for the good of the country. Look at that, getting a little tear running down my face there. So.
All right.
Anything else to add? Wow, the heat kicked on. I didn't turn the heat off.